Hey y'all, so I am back with another video. This time I wanted to talk about how I actually received my ovarian cancer diagnosis. If you watched the other video I mentioned, that really was a journey in itself. I did not get a quick diagnosis, that's for sure. So I want to talk about, how this all started, what my symptoms were, and how I initially found out. I guess I could really start back in November of last year because that's when I feel like some of my initial symptoms started and why I thought it was something else. So in November of last year, I was out of town for work and I started noticing like I was like belching a lot. And it wasn't like, you know how you eat a lot of food and your stomach's full and you have like this like deep from within belch, like it comes, and you have some relief when it's done. Mine wasn't really like that. So it was more so like coming from like my chest area almost. So like I would burp and it almost would feel like, I wasn't getting any relief. It kind of had a weird like sound to it. I won't imitate what the sound was, but of course I googled it. I also was kind of feeling sick on my stomach, so when I googled it, it said like signs of acid reflux. So I went to the store, of course, and I've been told that I had acid reflux before, but I had different symptoms. So before, if I ate something like with dairy or something, I might cough after I ate, but that was about it. So I went and bought like this 2-week thing of acid reflux medication, took that, felt better, and the belching stopped. So, and this went on for about a couple weeks or so, I think. Fast forward, feeling better. End of January, I started having the belching again. This time, I took the acid reflux medication and it wasn't really working. It started to kind of get worse. I started to have kind of nauseous feelings. Eating certain foods, I was starting to feel sick on my stomach. I started to have some bloating, but my stomach was still soft. So I went to the doctor, my regular PCP. I will not mention their name for several reasons. Maybe I'll do a tell-all one day. And anyway, I went to the doctor. I told him what my symptoms were. At that time, my stomach was somewhat bloated. It wasn't like huge, but there was some bloating. I noticed when I ate that my stomach also got bigger. I was feeling sick on my stomach, occasionally would throw up, feeling full really quickly at that point. I was also having like some pain in my sides. And so when I was at the doctor, he pretty much said, he felt around in my stomach. He was like, well, if it was like one of your organs, when I touched it, it would be like sore when he touched it. Okay, so in May of last year, I had started some medication. It immediately kind of decreased my appetite, and so who doesn't want to lose weight, I was heavy at the time. At that time, I weighed, I believe, 234 pounds. So when I started taking this medication, I was still eating, but I wasn't eating as much. From May to December, I probably lost like 20 pounds just because I wasn't eating as much food. Also, because when you start losing weight, you get motivated. So I was actually trying to eat better as well. So when I went to my doctor, talked about my symptoms, he ended up leaving there with Pepsid, another acid reflux medication, and he told me to take Gas-X for the belching that I had. He also referred me to a GI doctor. So, but when he referred me to the GI doctor, I wasn't going to be able to get an appointment until June. So this is January, and I'm like, okay, I can't wait till June, because at this point I'm noticing that I'm not really able to eat a lot. And I knew that if I waited till June with these symptoms and this acid reflux medication didn't work, like I was going to be super, sick by then. So left there with the meds. He told me that the medication wouldn't be a quick fix. It would take a little bit for, it to work. I take the medication for about a week and a half. By this time, my stomach has gotten bigger to the point where it's not soft when you touch it. My stomach is like hard, very full, like I look like I was pregnant. I called the doctor's office. I tell them, my symptoms have gotten worse. I've started having stomach cramps. I mean, I'm in misery. So called the doctor's office. They never called me back. Got on my chart, sent my doctor a message, never got a response. And mind you, when I saw my doctor, I really was kind of upset, and I was thinking, okay, I'm about to find me another doctor, because I really didn't like how he was talking to me. At one point, he was trying to talk to me like I was slow or something. I feel like he was trying to rush me. During this time, I don't hear a response, I'm trying to figure out what to do. And in the meantime, I'm like, I gotta find another GI doctor, because there's no way that I can wait till June and it's January to get some relief. So I ended up, a friend helped me to get an appointment with a doctor, and they called me. I was able to go like within the next few days. So I go visit that doctor. I tell him my symptoms. He kind of thinks it may be acid reflux related as well. And he offers me the option to get an endoscopy. So he said, I don't really think you need one. Like, I've been kind of miserable for a while. And at this point, when I go see him, it's like towards the end of February. I'm really like just tired of not feeling good. I'm eating, but I can't eat a lot of different things. Like, I can eat fruit, I can eat vegetables, but like if I ate like something with meat in it, by the time, it was time to go to bed, more than likely I was going to end up throwing it up. So I said, well, yes, I want the endoscopy. As much as I don't want to have a procedure and be put to sleep, I need to know what's going on. All types of things are going through my head, and I'm just trying to figure out what's wrong at this point. And I've never been sick for that amount of time without getting some type of relief. So while I'm at the doctor, he's just talking to me. He never touched on my stomach. He never said we need to do an ultrasound or anything like that. We just scheduled the endoscopy. I had it on February 23rd, I believe. And so they put me to sleep, and they put a camera down your throat and look at your esophagus and your stomach. So I had the procedure. They also do a biopsy. So after the procedure was done, he ended up telling me that I had gastritis, and I left there as well with acid reflux medication. So if you don't know what gastritis is, some of the symptoms, I will say, were a lot of the symptoms that I was having. So indigestion, nausea, vomiting, feeling full, and bloating. My biopsy came back negative for cancer, so I was like, okay, whew, okay, I'm gonna take this acid reflux medication, and he put me on omeprazole. Again, I was told that it wouldn't be a quick fix. At that point, I am taking my medication, praying that one day I'm going to wake up and my stomach is not going to be big, and that I'm going to feel better. So I'm waiting. My stomach is still big. I can tell that I'm losing more weight, but it was really hard to gauge because my stomach was so big. I weighed myself, and at that point I was 200 pounds, I believe. So I'm like, okay. But I'm noticing like my arms are getting small. But again, because I had this big stomach, I guess you could almost say I can't see the rest of my body. I don't know. But yeah, so taking the medication, barely eating. Like, I was pretty much eating watermelon and cantaloupe most days because that's what I could eat. There was days where I would test it out to see if I could get something with some substance in my body, and it just typically didn't work. It was hard for me to even drink fluids. I mean, because my stomach was so full, I guess it was just like pressing up against everything. I was having, obviously, other issues in the bathroom. TMI. Going to March, I go to my mom's house the day before my birthday. That was the first time she had seen me in person since, I believe, December. I know that she was shocked to see how I was looking. Honestly, I probably was trying to isolate myself from people because, for one, I didn't want people to think I was pregnant and have to go into this whole thing. I work from home for the most part, so really nobody really had saw me in person besides Cameron. So I go to her house, my mom's house in Whitehall, come back home that night, get ready to get into bed. Another symptom I was also having was I was very tired. We have stairs in our house, and the struggle was real. Like, could barely walk up and down the steps. And I mean, before I might get out of breath just because I was out of shape, but this was a different type of out of breath. I'm also struggling to lay down at nighttime. A lot of nights I was sleeping on the couch because it was more comfortable for me. I get on the couch, get on the covers, and I'm like, why is my heart racing so fast? Like, to the point where it would be like if I had done a workout or something. And I was just laying there. I started doing some breathing exercises and different things, and it kind of it calmed down enough for me to relax enough to go to sleep. So my birthday is the next day. I really don't have the energy to do anything, so I'm like, well, I'm going to get my yearly birthday pedicure at least. Go do that. So just during the day, I'm noticing that my heart rate just beating out of my chest. Like, I could almost see it, like. And so at that point, I'm like, well, maybe I'm dehydrated or something because I'm barely able to eat. I'm barely able to drink anything. I say, well, I'm going to take myself to urgent care. You know, they're going to give me a little bag of fluids. I'm going to be on my way. No. So I go to urgent care. They check my pulse, and it is 140. That's not good. So your resting heart rate should be under 100. They do an EKG. She says, well, the rhythm of your heart is beating right. It's not like skipping a beat or anything like that. But obviously your heart is beating too fast. So then I get a referral to a cardiologist. So I go to this cardiologist later on in the week, and he does another EKG, tells me the same thing. Then he says, well, I don't want to just give you some medication to slow down your heart rate. We don't know why it's doing it. So I explained to him, you know, what I have been going through over the last couple of months. And I, you know, made sure he saw my stomach or whatever. So he said, well, we're going to do an echo of your heart because I want to make sure you don't have any abnormalities in your heart or anything like that. They do the ultrasound. I go back to his office, and I noticed that he has a worried look on his face. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is something wrong with my heart? He says, okay, your heart looks great. It looks normal. Yes, it's beating fast. He said, but my main concern is that you have fluid on your abdomen. Did you know that? And I'm like, huh? Like, fluid? No, I just thought I was bloated because that's what people have been telling me. I hadn't had an ultrasound. I'm just going by what I was told. So then he says, well, we need to figure out why you have this fluid on your abdomen. So he says, well, if you want to wait, we can do a CAT scan here if your insurance will approve it, or I can let you go back to your doctor and let, you know, them take care of it. So at this point, I'm like, no, I don't want to go back to my doctor. Like, if my insurance will approve it, let's do it now. So I do the CT scan. I go home. They tell me that they're going to call me within an hour with my results. So of course, you know, when you're waiting on somebody, it's never going to be quickly. So it actually probably took like 2.5 hours before they called me. My anxiety is in full spin. I'm spiraling, like, what's going on? What's wrong with me? You know, I'm also like frustrated because I've been to 2 doctors at this point and nobody said, hey, let's do an ultrasound. Anyway, so they finally called me and he says, okay, so yes, you do have fluid on your abdomen, a lot of fluid, and you have a mass on your uterus. So of course, my mouth drops open. I am in shock. Of course, you know, I'm upset like any human being would be. And I hear him say the word cancer. He doesn't say officially that it's cancer, but he tells me that he's talked to someone and he's going to refer me to UAMS because they have the best doctors there. They are the best dealing with this sort of thing. I go into the weekend, of course. You know, I'm worried. So then I go into the next week and I'm waiting on them to call me with my referral. Wait a couple days, hadn't heard from anyone. So I was like, well, why don't I call my gynecologist and see if she can look at the scans from the doctor and maybe there's something that she can do, because I've been diagnosed with fibroids before or something. I'm like, okay, maybe it's a fibroid and that's something, because she does some procedures. So I'm thinking, well, maybe if my gynecologist can take care of this, she looks at it and see if it's something that she can take care of. I just wanted to talk to somebody because I was tired of waiting. So because it's spring break week, by the time she gets the CT report from the doctor, she's gone out of town on vacation. And maybe because I was under so much stress, my energy level has dropped even more. Going from walking to a parking lot into a building being out of breath, I go from that to walking into the bathroom, can barely stand up in the shower for a few minutes, and I'm out of breath. It could have been because of the amount of stress I was under at that point, or it might have just been about to happen. I tell Cameron, I haven't heard from UMS yet. My doctor's on vacation. I want to go to the emergency room. So because I'm having like shortness of breath, heart palpitations, they pretty much whisk me back. They run a bunch of tests. I do another EKG. They tell me they're going to drain the fluid. It has a term. I forgot what it's called. So I'm like, how y'all gonna do that? And Cameron was laughing later because we're gonna find a joke out of anything. He was like, I wish you would have seen your face. They drain the fluid, and they do that by they stick a needle connected to a tube into my side, and then they just fill these buckets up with fluid. I'm going to attach a picture so you can see what it looks like. And so I'm sitting there, they fill up one like container, and so I'm like, oh my gosh, that came out of my stomach. And she was like, yeah, but you're not through. What? So I continue to fill up these containers. Ended up, they drained 10.5 liters of fluid from my abdomen. So if you think about a liter of soda, I had 10.5 of those. And I really was just shocked. But I could also see why I felt so bad, because I carried this around for a little over 2 months in my body. So I get this fluid drained. They then do another CT scan to make sure I didn't have blood clots in my lungs. Luckily, I didn't. Left there and immediately had an appetite. Like, it's crazy how fast I was hungry. Like, It was 8:30 when we left. And I was like, ooh, Taziki's is still open. I want a Greek salad. And I tore that salad up. It was good. Then I started planning what I wanted my mama to cook for me.
Yes, she did.
The next day, I was like, Mama, I want some chicken spaghetti. Like, I was ready to eat. And the procedure wasn't that bad. I was a little sore afterwards. It didn't hurt while I was getting it done. So something else just to kind of give you a perspective on how much fluid was on my abdomen. When I went to the emergency room, they weighed me. I was 200 pounds. When I weighed myself the next morning, I was 174. So that tells you how much weight I lost while gaining fluid at the same time. Leave there, go home, still waiting on my referral from UMS. They finally call. In the meantime, my doctor is back from vacation. And so at this point, we're just waiting on the labs to come back. So it took almost 2 weeks for me to get my labs back. So again, wait. She wants to see me before I go to my UMS appointment to talk about my labs. So I go see her actually the day before my appointment at the UMS Women's Cancer Clinic. So she sits me down and she says, well, we got your results back and the fluid was positive for cancer cells. So even though I kind of had been warned this was a possibility, it still was a shock to hear. Also, it wasn't like, you know, I hadn't, besides all the my other doctors, I mean, I get my yearly exams at the gynecologist. This time last year, Cameron and I were actually doing IUI, trying to get pregnant. So it was hard to, I guess, formulate in my mind how this happened so quickly. Of course, I'm human. I got upset, I cried. And the first thing I thought about is, I want a baby, you know? And I think the first thing, it wasn't about, to me, the first thing wasn't thinking life or death. It was just, does this mean I'm not going to be able to have a baby, you know? And she was just, you know, she was very comforting to me. I mean, this has been my doctor for years. And that's a part of why she wanted to call me in, because she knows me. She didn't want me to be shocked, you know, meeting someone, a doctor, for the first time and finding out this news. She was so reassuring, and she was just like, but you know, even if you can't physically have kids, there are a lot of children out there that you could adopt and still love them the same. And again, I was frustrated because I had been to the doctor. I feel like I was doing the right thing, trying to figure out what was going on, and I just feel like they missed it, you know, and I had to go to a cardiologist to find out what was going on. So I'm thankful my pulse was racing, because if that wouldn't have happened, I probably still would have sat at home with fluid on my stomach, taking acid reflux medication, just hoping that one day I was gonna get better. So I'm definitely thankful for that. I go to UAMS. They pretty much tell me the same thing. So they explain what my course of treatment will be. I will have 3 doses of chemo every 3 weeks. So on last Friday, I had my first round. And I will do a video, a separate video, because I know this has gotten long, about what my first experience was like. I will have a second treatment on May 6th, wait 3 more weeks, and then hopefully have my final treatment, and then they will do a scan. At that point, the fluid should be gone, because mind you, the fluid returns. So I've actually had the fluid drain twice already. So the chemo is to help get rid of the fluid as well as shrink the tumor. Yeah, so I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Just to give you some of what the symptoms are, I had all those symptoms. The gastrointestinal stuff, bloating, changing bowel habits, indigestion, nausea. I had some abdominal pain, but not really a lot. Abdominal fullness with the fluid. a lump in my abdomen, which once they drained the fluid, I actually could feel the lump. I couldn't feel the lump with my stomach being swollen, but like I said, once they drained the fluid, I could actually feel where the lump was. Fatigue, very much so. That probably was the strongest symptom that I had besides the round stomach. Loss of appetite, and again, weight loss. So that's a lot of symptoms to have at one time. But an ultrasound early on, I feel like would have saved me a lot of time and misery. So yeah, that was pretty much my diagnosis journey. I know this video was not quick. It was kind of hard to tell the story in a few minutes, you know, because it wasn't a quick journey. So I'm going to do another video talking about my first experience with my first chemo treatment a week ago. So stay tuned.